Okay guys, today I'm bringing you a full review on this beautiful palette here. This is the Kat Von D Saint and Sinner palette. This is the outside packaging here, so on the front, this kind of shows you what it's going to look like on the inside. And on the back, it shows you all the different shades. There's 24 different shades, 12 on the Saint side, 12 on the Sinner side. And so this is just telling you where they're going to be in the layout and what the shade names are. And then underneath that is all the different ingredients in very small print. I actually know somebody who had been looking for the ingredients online, couldn't find them, and tried to contact the company, and they were oddly weird about trying to give the ingredients away. They were just like, they're on the box. Well, that's nice, but she couldn't have the box. She hadn't bought it yet. And she had very specific allergies to certain ingredients, so it would have been nice if they had just, told her the ingredients, and they didn't. So that was a little bit odd. And here's what the actual palette looks like. It's absolutely stunning. It's got this sort of embossed lettering and filigree. And again, on the back, they show you the shades, and it just says Saint and Sinner eyeshadow palette. Recommended usage time is 9 months. That's not going to happen. And it opens this way. You can only open it this way first, which reveals the Sinner side. And then you have to open it this way to reveal the Saint side. And then it has 2 flaps for mirrors. And then it goes, like that at the back. And this is supposed to resemble a cathedral, which I can totally see that, obviously. And then these are supposed to resemble light refracting through stained glass windows. And again, I can definitely see that. So you have, like I said, 24 different shades. Some of them are matte, some of them are shimmer, some of them are metallic, some of them are glitter, and then some of these, specifically these 2 up here, are glimmer shades. Now, before we get into my actual thoughts on the palette, I want to show you swatches, and I want to show you 3 different looks I completed with this, including the one I have on my eyes right now. So first I'll roll the swatches, then the 3 different looks, and then we'll come back here. So just a note about swatches before we get into those. I did finger swatches and brush swatches. Some of the swatches are better than others, and don't let that reflect poorly on this palette. I think it's my own fault. I have very, very small fingers, for one thing, that don't apply as much pressure as somebody with larger fingers. And also my brush collection is smaller than other people out there. So, I did use the same brush for all of them, cleaning them off in between, obviously. I used the brush that I thought would work best throughout. I'm new to this, obviously. So I did the best I could, but some colors don't work as well with a brush as they do with a finger, vice versa, and just take that into account. Okay guys, we're starting off with the Saint side of the palette. I'm using a mix of Amen and Crucifix in my crease, and this is where I realized that I didn't set my lids properly and that it's sticking down a little bit funny, but these shadows blend so easily that, as you can see, it's just blending out no problem. This eye I set a little bit better than the other one, so this is how it should have blended out initially. I just wanted to show you this. I'm now taking the shade Sacred Heart, and I'm just going to pat that on the inner portion of my eye. I'm not using a wet brush or anything. This is just no base and completely dry brush. I'm now taking the shade Chalice, and I'm blending that in the center of my lid, and this is a metallic shade, and again, this is just a dry brush, no base. I just wanted to show you guys how these shadows perform on their own in this first look. On the outer portion of my eye, I'm taking the shade Immaculate, which is a sort of olive green, army green, and this is a little bit less green on my eye than I would have liked, but if I put down a different base, like maybe a white base underneath, I have a feeling it would pop a little bit more. And I'm kind of taking that same shade into the outer portion of my crease and kind of taking that into an elongated cat shape at the outer corner there. It takes some building, and it kind of almost grays out on my skin a bit. I'm not sure why. And I'm just re-intensifying the color through the crease because I have so much going on the lid now. I feel like the crease needs a little bit more color. I'm taking the shade Chalice and running that along my lower lash line, and I'm gonna follow that up with Immaculate. For the inner corner, I'm using the shade Absolution. This is actually a glitter topper, but it works really well in the inner corner because it's a sort of frosty white shade. And I'm putting a little bit of Amen underneath my brow bone, although I'm not sure why. It's the same shade as my skin, basically. I'm just taking an angled brush and putting a small layer of Crucifix along my upper lash line. I'm not taking this all the way to the inner corner. I'm kind of stopping where the shade Chalice stops and Sacred Heart begins. For blush, I thought I would use something kind of warm toned to go and marry itself in with Sacred Heart. I thought this looked quite nice. I'm taking the Alchemist Palette, also by Kat Von D. I'm taking a mix of the green and the pink here to kind of create a gold shade. And I'm just going to put that on the tops of my cheekbones like so. Finally, for my lips, I'm taking a Nudestix pencil. This is in the shade Pulse. And so we have the completed look using the Saint side of the palette. Stay tuned for look number 2 using the Sinner side. Now we're doing a look with the Sinner side of the palette. I'm starting off with the shade Ashes in my crease, which does have a bit of glitter in it, but because I tapped off my brush and I'm going in very lightly in the crease instead of on the lid, you won't really see it. It'll just look matte. In order to take that all the way into the inner corner, almost into the bridge of my nose, I'm taking that on a very small brush, just like so. Taking my E.l.f. glitter primer now, and just patting that all over the lid. I'm just pouring a little bit of mixing medium onto this brush in order to get it wet. And I went into the shade Vestment thinking this is going to look awesome with a wet brush and a sticky base, and something went wrong. It went kind of black, and I realized that this wasn't good, so yeah, that's my look of surprise right there. I'm like, huh? What happened? What happened? So do-over, just taking my finger now and putting that on the lid instead, and you can see this is what the color is supposed to look like. Very intense, very beautiful. It's almost like a trichrome color, not a duochrome. It's like a teal to burgundy brown and then a black, and somehow wetting it just brought out the black and none of the rest of the colors, so that was my bad. I just want to buff out the edges of that once I have the color placed, just taking a firmer brush. Now I'm taking the shade Relic, which is a yellow gold, on a small flat brush, and I'm putting that on the innermost portion of my eye and kind of melding that into the shade Vestment. And this shade has so much pigment, I did not have to wet the brush at all. It just goes on like it's already wet. Still using that shade Relic, but I'm taking that on a thick angled brush and drawing that along the upper lash line now. Once I get to the outer corner, I'm taking a thinner angled brush and I'm just creating a winged liner using that gold. I'm just going to re-intensify and blend some of the color Ashes in through the crease again. On the lower lash line, I'm taking this shade Stigmata, which is a really bright orangey red. And I'm taking a small blending brush to blow that out, kind of elongating it along the lower part of that golden wing I did. Time to warm up my face because I am looking a little pale. I'm taking a shade of blush that's almost as warm as a bronzer because my face is in dire need of warmth. This is actually a blush from Anada. I'll leave it down below.
For lips, I'm taking the NYX Liquid Suede Cream Lipstick in Cherry Skies, which is a deep burgundy red. And this is the completed look using the center side. Stay tuned for look number 3, which will use both sides. Time for look number 3 using the Saint and center side. I'm placing the shade Martyr in my crease and blending that out with a fluffier brush. I'm taking more of that e.l.f. glitter base and patting that all over each lid. I'm taking the shade Cathedral and packing that on my lid with a finger. I'm using a small flat shader brush to reach the areas that my finger won't. On that same brush, I'm taking the shade Warship, which is a sort of eggplant purple, and placing that. I'm just taking a separate brush and kind of blending out the edges of the shade Warship. I'm taking a very small brush and putting Warship in through the crease, just a very small amount of it, almost like I'm cutting the crease. And once I've done that, I'm taking another brush and blending it through. And I'm putting the shade Sanctuary on my lower lash line now. I'm putting Absolution in my inner corner like I did with the first look. I'm taking the other glimmer shade Rapture, which is pink, and putting that over top of the shade Cathedral. I'm taking my e.l.f. Intense Ink eyeliner and I'm going to draw a wing. I'm just applying some blush now. This is the Tarte Amazonian Clay Blush in Party, and yes, you have to say it like that because there's 3 A's. I'm taking the Alchemist Palette, also by Kat Von D, going in with the shade Pink Opal, and just highlighting the tops of my cheekbones. I thought that this looked good with the eyes. For lips, I'm going with my trusty Annabelle Twist Up Retractable Lip Color in Romance, and just applying some of that. And look number 3 is complete. Now on to my review.
So prior to filming this video and filming the 3 different looks, filming the swatches, I had played with this palette before. This was not my first time. I've had this palette since late October, and I'd used it about 3 or 4 times before filming any of the looks you see. And I'd played with, quite a few different shades, and then the ones that I hadn't had the chance to use, I tried to use them for this video. So I think the only shades I haven't used yet would be these 2. Devil and Revelation. Oh, and Sabbath. I haven't used the black. Everything else I've used. And overall, I'm very, very, very pleased with the quality. The quality is fantastic. The only other eyeshadow palette I have from Kat Von D is the Pastel Goth palette. Actually, that's not true. I have the Alchemist palette as well. That's meant to be used on eyes, face, or lips. And the quality overall seems to be on par with those 2. The matte shades work really well. The metallics are amazing. Some of these are just matte with glitter, like these 2 here, even this one here. They are matte, they just have a little bit of glitter infused into them. So you could see in one of the looks I used the shade Ashes, and so I used that with a fluffy brush. And when I went into that like this and then just tapped off the brush, most of the glitter will fall away with that. And then because I was using that in the crease and stuff, just packing it all over the lid, I didn't really see the glitter after that. And I'm also wondering if maybe the glitter doesn't run all the way through. I'm going to see that the more I use this. These shades down here are fantastic. These ones over here, fantastic. The two shades I've had the most problem with are Immaculate and Exorcism. Immaculate is this sort of olive green shade. It's supposed to be a pearlescent shade according to the description of this palette. I can see how it's definitely a satin shade. It's just the color, for some reason, doesn't come off super green. It comes off green on my finger here when I swatch it. However, applying it on my eyes, I found that the green just kind of faded away to a sort of murky gray. And then this color, Exorcism, which you know how much I love purple. This is a beautiful violet shade, and I'm going to insert a look I did using this color. I used that, and I used Exodus primarily all over the lid and into the crease, and Exorcism looked more like a navy blue, which then faded into a gray as well on me, which was disappointing. It's that one there. And you could see I had a little bit of trouble with vestment, but that's because I tried to wet my brush and use it like that. I figured a metallic shade would be, you know, usable with a wet brush, but for some reason it didn't like that. But applying it with a finger, I had no trouble. A lot of these metallic shades work amazing with a finger, and I find that this brush here, this Real Techniques brush, applies them really well too. So maybe it was just this brush that I tried to use it with that it didn't like that one. I mean, I'm not a pro, we all know that, so it could be that, but I'm usually pretty good at gauging which brushes to use with what. This one is the one I used for all the swatches, and the reason I did that is because it seems to work well. It seems to work well with pretty well every different formula equally. I think the main issue with this palette for people out there is going to be the layout. It's definitely a little bit all over the place if you look at it initially. It does make sense conceptually. However, if you're not used to pairing colors, it's going to be a little bit daunting for you. There are some people online who visually rearrange the palette to make it a little bit easier to come up with looks. I can leave a couple of those images down below if you're interested in this palette, but you're kind of looking at this and going, I don't know what to do with it. I have a little bit of an artistic background, so looking at these colors, it wasn't a big problem for me, but it may be a problem for some of you out there who, you know, you're not that used to looking at a bright blue, a bright green, a bright orange, and then over here you have all these neutrals and you're just going, this looks a little random, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to pair them. That's when a color wheel could also come into play. Some people are just better at this sort of thing than others. Sometimes it's just kind of in you. Like I said, I do have a little bit of an artistic background. My grandparents, some of my grandparents had artistic backgrounds. I think it's just something I know. Also with the different finishes in the palette, if you're not used to application with these different finishes, you may struggle a little bit because, you know, you may be able to just dip into a matte shade, no problem. And then you get to like the glimmer shades at the top or some of the metallics and realize that you have to use a different brush or you have to use your finger, and you may feel a little bit out of place there.
I'd just like to note at this time that I know a lot of people were struggling with there being fewer matte shades or transition shades. You can always pull from another palette or mix shades like I did.
So I think that this palette is designed more for people who are already used to experimenting a lot. And that makes sense. I mean, when you look at the size of it, I don't think she put this out for beginners. I think she put this out for people who are already used to her brand and what she does. So overall, I'm very, very happy with this palette. I've come up with lots of looks that I love and will continue to use it. Absolutely. I think it's worth the price. You get a lot of product in here, and the palette itself is beautiful. It's like a display piece, honestly. But I'm not going to display it, I'm just going to use it. If there's anything else you want to know about this palette, let me know. I'll get back to you, and I'll see you next time.